When I watch FaZe in G2, I'm not expecting prime Astralis. Sometimes these teams can play a bit loose, but I think this game is really sloppy for either of their standards. A lot of it has to do with players are going to hit some nice shots here, and I'll show you what that looks like, but sometimes the setups just felt like they were kind of asking to fail, and the round goes the other way. So I'll show you this one to begin with. Now, G2, they went for mid control early. FaZe have just given up mid completely. And it's a second round force. They lost the pistol round. G2, push off Donut. They could be in Red Room, and FaZe are just fine with that, and they're just gambling that G2 aren't doing that. And then G2, after not being an A main for quite a while, they will eventually go back and they're gonna try and take control of Cave. And one of the things to note is that Frozen is not a B player. In fact, Karrigan and Rain, I think they've swapped positions recently, maybe even they just started doing it this game, but for Frozen for sure is not a B player. So when Snax and Hunter go in towards Cave here, Snax is gonna end up dying, Frozen will end up dying as well. They should know that there's a good chance based on this that there's another B player. In fact, Rain just smoked off Nico and Malbs, but they don't have a flash to work with, and they decide that they should just jump through this smoke and trade. But, credit to Rain, he hits a couple nice shots, but still, it's a little odd on the timing. I feel like they could have just waited a couple extra seconds, maybe for Hunter and m0NESY, but then Rain just hits a really solid 4K, but I feel like the opportunity for him to get that many kills without getting traded really shouldn't be there in general. But okay, that's just one round. Now, the force buy wars in this game are going to go on for quite a while. And looking at the setup from FaZe, initially it looks like they might have wanted to go for mid control, but they cancel once there's a Red Room smoke, which is fine. And then you have Karrigan get aggressive in a Cheetah, which is also fine. However, generally when I see this setup, and I think Karrigan might have been expecting this as the standard play, you usually have an aggressive player in mid so that if a B ramp hit comes out, that you can have that player clear out lane, or even Karrigan can help clear it out. But I often see them clear out B lane with this player here, prevent the flank onto Karrigan, and then Karrigan isn't forced out into the site, worried about a flank. And then Frozen, he's not like this isn't a mistake, but he is just a couple seconds later than maybe he'd want to be if he wanted to hold this site. Instead, the site hit is going to come out right now. Karrigan gets kind of caught here. I think he might have been backing up to go for something with his teammates. He has a smoke, but he doesn't have a chance to use it. He's going to try to make his way out to Pillar, close range against Tech9s, and he's actually going to over deliver. So Karrigan does a really good job here to get 2. And when the T's get that close with Tech9s, that player Pillar can absolutely end up dying without getting anything, right? But getting 2 puts them in a pretty good spot. No, they didn't have an aggressive mid play, so they couldn't really go for a Cheetah flank, and that's fine. They can actually just smoke off Cave, and they'll be in a reasonably good spot. In fact, they smoke it off right here, but Nico picks up Karrigan's dropped smoke, which is key. And you have Rain, who's 14 health, and he has a flash. And look, flashes from this close, Nico's going to be able to hear that flash. However, it would still be nice if he dropped it to someone else if he's going to lead in first, just so they have the option of throwing it. Because when they get smoked off here, even if Nico could hear the flash and turn from it, just the fact that a flash is incoming would give them the opportunity to go through this smoke. Instead, the smoke goes down, Rain tries to go through it instantly, and, Frozen maybe gets the trade most of the time. It looked like he had an opportunity there, but still, it's a rough situation to be in. And then you end up in this 2v1 where ropz really doesn't have a chance at all. One of the things G2 try to do a lot in this game is they want to attack the B site, and I think historically Karrigan has been the main B site player, but he's actually playing in Cave, and it's Rain playing towards B the majority of the rounds in this game. But it begins with ropz getting aggressive towards A. They want to try and punish this kind of like solo A lurk. Then on the other side, honestly, m0NESY just whiffs here. I think this is a reasonable engagement to be going for. There's no trade realistically possible, but you're fighting against Deagles. You're in a pretty good spot, but he just ends up dying to Rain from 3 body shots with the Deagle, which stuffs what was going to be the B hit, right? G2 were clearly setting up to go for a B hit, but that's still an okay situation for G2, especially once Snax gets the kill back onto Karrigan. But ropz got aggressive in A main, spotted out Malbs, did damage, and he knows he did some damage, and then backed up. And you can do lots of things here if you're FaZe, but one of the main things you're going to be thinking about is going for some information in mid, and Snax seems to know that, and that's why he wants to check if FaZe have taken mid themselves. But it does mean basically if Snax Snax loses this duel, that G2 are in a really rough situation. Now they're 3v4. They have not many options, right? Basically, they have to go back B here. Without mid control, and A retake feels pretty effective in these sorts of situations. So they just make their way back into a B hit, which is totally reasonable. And FaZe don't have a ton of utility to hold on with. Now in this case, Brokey is Pillar with full health, and Rain has 3 HP. So Brokey kind of needs to play the bait for Rain to have a chance, but Brokey actually won't deliver on a kill here, especially after he gets spotted. He gets instantly dinked, which is just unfortunate for him. But Rain does his job, gets one, and gets some damage onto the second player as well, putting it into a 2v2. But then this smoke goes down, and I don't think that NiKo realizes this smoke is dissipated, because Frozen then can just walk forward and get the kill onto Hunter. And although NiKo gets the trade, it's a trade right back, and you've got a 2-2 scoreline. And this is just going to keep getting weirder and weirder up until a point, because now we've got Brokey with an auto shotty in towards A main, and m0NESY is actually going to see his shadow here. Now, this is kind of the dream scenario, unless you're caught looking the wrong direction. Now, m0NESY, because he just saw Brokey's shadow, he'll call Hunter back over to throw the flash for him. Brokey, though, is going to avoid that. He's actually going to be looking in the right direction at the right time. Flash pops. He can hear m0NESY running and still loses the duel with an auto shotty. Now, because of that setup, it just kind of looks like there's probably a second player on A, especially because you have Malbs with aggressive control of middle. FaZe are going to pivot into a retake of mid control, which I think is great. They're playing, relatively safe on B, which is also fine. Frozen is going to find himself a kill, and then look what happens here. He's going to get aggressive to try and clear out. Okay, is anybody else in red? No, which means they basically have to be hitting B, and they're going to quickly try and retake lane control and go for the flank. Snax will end up dying, but FaZe is on the other side of the map taking A control, and they'll get a free bomb plant out of this. Now, this is still a reasonable situation for FaZe. I mean, it's a 4v3 retake of A site, but they've lost CT spawn control, which makes this a little bit awkward. And then you're just going to have Malbs hit 2 really nice shots, and you can't really fault FaZe for that. That's just the reality. And ropz, I believe, picks up 1 here and draws a distraction, and it makes it very much winnable. However, actually, I think they actually might win this unless NiKo just pulls off something crazy. I thought these Force Buy wars went on a lot longer, but that was unbelievably close. I mean, you have ropz and Frozen with 18 and 19 HP, and finally, FaZe won a back-to-back round. I'll skip over the first buy round because it was basically just a B rush that G2 got shut down with. G2 want to go for like a B site exec, delayed B site exec, and FaZe are running delayed control in mid. They're having Karrigan hold on to his molly. Karrigan's gonna Molotov shelf, and then they're gonna use that to actually retake mid pretty comfortably, which is great. But as that molly comes down, that's when G2 are already going for their exec, and Snax is close up. He hears Karrigan fall back, pushes through, catches Karrigan off guard, and gets himself the kill. And even if Snax hadn't got that kill, I mean, Malbs was about to trade. Now, the push through the smoke from Hunter kills Rain, and that makes this a little awkward. But this is what I was talking about. G2 aren't really sure where to look. They aren't sure what to be watching because this mid flank is coming in. If the mid flank was a few seconds earlier, this would have made it even better for them. ropz gets the kill onto Snax, and Brokey here's that flash. That's why there was that kind of question mark. Should Rain have dropped his flash? Well, part of the problem with throwing a flash is your opponents can basically hear it from as close as they're going to be. That's the situation. You hear it coming, you wait for the pop, Brokey spins around, gets 2 kills. So the following gun round is actually very interesting because FaZe are going to go for a very similar play to the one they went for previously. Maybe they were even expecting G2 were on a buy round in that previous round. They've got Frozen and ropz here towards middle. Karrigan is going to hold on to his molly so he can toss it down shelf. But one of the things I noticed just now watching this again, the molly gets thrown just now. And then Brokey, just right at the same time, switches to his op. I'm not sure if this is called. It looks like they want to move out middle, but then Brokey doesn't have the flash ready for them. And by the time that the push into middle actually happens, the shelf molly's actually down. So Snax can be here on shelf and potentially win a duel and make it at least very uncomfortable. But Frozen does get past Snax because of the molly, so at least the timing does work out for him. And that puts it, of course, into a 5v4 for FaZe. So they did get some control of middle, and if G2 want it back, they're either going to have to take some risks by taking duels, or they're going to have to waste a lot of utility to do so. Then I really like this activity when it came from Karrigan. Instead of sitting around in Cheetah, where sometimes you can get traded on, he pivots back in towards B site, and not only that, but they bring a third player over. Frozen's got a flash to make this, as effective as possible. Rain's already been lagged, by the way, so he's got to be a little careful, right? And Karrigan just walks down ramp. Now, theoretically, I think the players in Cheetah probably heard heard that flash B ramp, and so the idea of someone pushing B ramp feels like it should be a little bit less foreign to Snax than this. Or maybe it's, I don't know, he's just deciding that mid is more likely to get shot from than B ramp, but that ends up with G2 in a 2v4, and I think here they're just going to end up saving. So when I say this game is a bit sloppy, I don't mean there's like massive errors all over the place, but a lot of the time it's just kind of small things that catch you off guard, and players didn't do all that often that end up causing some problems. So I actually really like this play from Karrigan. He knows that Snax really likes to go out to shelf, and typically Karrigan I don't think is that aggressive in this position. So he just walks straight through the shelf smoke and gets a kill. And on the other side, at just about the same time, NiKo gets a kill onto Rain. But there's a key to that. This is actually a setup I really like, and NiKo runs himself, but NiKo, his shadow's actually visible right here, and Rain doesn't notice it. Then Rain misses this smoke. Now, it's not that the smoke like goes into the wrong angle, but if you bounce it off the wall instead of the ground, it lands maybe half a second faster, which would have potentially actually saved his life there. Then in middle, a smoke gets missed, and then Hunter gets spotted. And I think this is really relevant because Brokey ends up dying to NiKo, and now Karrigan is in a really awkward spot, right? Because NiKo could just walk in from site side and take him down. He could be getting flanked because Frozen is like leaving middle, so he could get flanked from shelf eventually. And you know, he has to worry about someone just coming through lane normally. Now, because Frozen is left mid, Hunter could be lurking mid late, but Karrigan's going to hear the bomb start getting planted. And if they're already planting the bomb, it feels like the most likely thing Hunter did was go back T-spawn to B. And Karrigan is aware of that, but then he doesn't deep clear. Now, if you deep clear, you could just be getting shot from someone that moved back ramp and is watching this angle. But if you're not going to deep clear it, maybe you just hold it for a few seconds. That's, you know, kind of just an unfortunate situation. But it ends up with a couple of small things take what would have been potentially an 8th round for FaZe, or at least it would have been 5v4 where FaZe has a reasonable advantage. Now, I mentioned G2 really trying to attack the B site in this game, and this is another round where you're really thinking if you're FaZe, it seems like FaZe is kind of like, well, eventually they're going to go A, and we're kind of expecting that, but that's not what happens. It ends up being that G2 were considering something and then decide to run back, and they're going to make it into a B hit. Mobs is actually going to be very aggressive here in middle on his own, nade out the smoke, get aggressive, and he notices that nobody is in mid, so G2 have plenty of time to do whatever they want. Now, FaZe, again, they're playing 3A here, and they're really basically giving up middle at the moment, although Frozen's here, and he's got this gap, so he's going to know if anybody tries to get aggressive. And you have Karrigan and Rain together on B. They don't have a lot of utility, and this gets a bit awkward, right? Because you have no smoke, no nade, no flash. You don't have the greatest setup ever. Do you want to get aggressive? And in this case, Karrigan is going to look to get aggressive on B ramp, which is cool. By the way, he can actually see NiKo here, just barely. So if you jack your brightness all the way up, NiKo is actually very visible. But if I turn it down a bit lower, he's actually almost invisible. It's just kind of a funny interaction there. I understand how Karrigan doesn't spot him here. The one thing I was kind of questioning here was like, do they need to get aggressive on B when they're tripled up on A? Couldn't they be looking for something in mid, or, you know, rotating a third player over to B, then getting aggressive? But it seems like they had reasoning behind it. But then G2 had this smoke land a bit deeper than usual, and that leaves a little bit of room for Rain here. If he had a flash from a teammate, this could be insanely effective, but his team just doesn't have the utility to support. So he just kind of has to duel from a spot that obviously G2 know he could be in, which puts them into a 3v4. And then it's really going to rely on Frozen getting this kill in mid. And you see that lurk from Mobs, right? That might be why Karrigan wasn't like so convinced that Hunter was coming from T-spawn side. Maybe he was thinking that Hunter was going to be a delayed lurk in middle, which is definitely possible. But once Frozen goes down, this round's basically over. So if we skip over to the second half, G2 actually won both pistols in this game, although, you know, the Force Wars did end in FaZe's favor after 5 or 6 rounds in the beginning. But in this case, they go for this is a 5-man B lane control. And one of the things that happens in this game is I feel like G2 are very often in the right setups at the right times, but they kind of get out-fragged by FaZe to some extent. Now, in this case, they go for the 5-man B lane control. It looks like FaZe, I'm not sure if they were planning on like a delayed A hit, or if they were just trying to sniff out Mobs, who sometimes gets pretty aggressive in A main completely on his own. And maybe they were just trying to check and see if he was doing something like that early on in the game. But it ends up that they don't hit A quickly off of that B lane control, and then they make their way back over to B. And generally, when the CTs get B lane control, maybe they're gonna rotate 1 or 2 players off and just hold with maybe just Snax and NiKo. G2 kind of see this coming, and they actually rotate m0NESY over. Now, as long as Snax and Nico can, go 1-for-1 or something like that, then m0NESY being the third player there should catch them off guard and basically secure the round. However, unfortunately for them, neither of those players get a kill. Now, m0NESY can deliver, and actually, I kind of set you up for failure at the beginning because m0NESY's actually just going to carry this round, and I just wanted to show it. Although this isn't necessarily how the majority of this half goes. I think very often, like that, where G2 were in a very good setup, and neither of their players got a kill initially. Just think of this round without m0NESY kind of pulling off some heroics to hold down to the actual bomb site. Although, it was the setup that really got him the first 2 kills. The third kill, he probably doesn't get every time. So the very following round, we can see kind of how G2 play their anti-ecos a little bit differently, and they're going to go for that kind of aggressive lane control. Now, one of the reasons that can go wrong is when karrigan somehow just gets both kills. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I'm going to replay that for you. I'm going to go ahead and say that's not really supposed to happen on an average round, but that really puts G2 in just a really, really bad situation. Now you got a 4v2, and although FaZe is pretty injured here, it's still not a great situation for G2. And if Snax does die, this round's kind of over. But this flank is going to come in from Frozen that will pretty much secure the round. He was solo lurking in mid, and once both mid players die to karrigan there, he's got a great opportunity to get aggressive. And even if he hadn't hit that shot, Brokey was there to make sure that the kill went their way anyways, and then the round's pretty much over. I feel like this game has to be one of the most chaotic that I've seen in quite a while, because we're again going to see, it's going to be Snax this time that gets a really nice individual play. Now, in middle, FaZe want to go for this like delayed mid control, and one of the things I think FaZe like is they want to get a little bit of chaos. And if that means, they can lose the first kill, but if they can trade that kill, they can turn it into a 4v4. I think karrigan is really great at calling when there's some chaos. When it's something like a 4v4, a 3v3, or even like a 3v4, he's great at kind of causing problems and creating gaps. But in this case, if you look at this nade from karrigan, this is like, karrigan has no idea I'm here. He can't know I'm here, otherwise, so he actually finds his like perfect timing because of that nade from karrigan, where he gets into this angle, and that flash was going to be pretty key from karrigan. And not only that, but the fact that he pulls that out, I think really signals that a B hit was coming, because what else is he flashing? Maybe he's flashing as a fake, very possible, but it almost felt like it signaled a B hit was coming. But now you have this really weird situation where G2 have lane control, and they're 5v3, but then Brokey and Rain are on B site. Now, one of the things I really like is that Brokey doesn't force the plant here. He forces the plant, and that immediately says that someone could be pushed up long. So he waits to force the plant. He actually holds it for a while, and then as soon as Rain gets that kill, he instantly goes for the plant. Rain actually tosses down a smoke to prevent a trade, which gives Brokey time to get out of the bomb site and into a good position. But then at this point, and we've all been here if we've played this map, this player has to die somehow, unless you like go all the way around through. He's gonna have to die, right? He's just gonna have to die. And Hunter swings out first with m0NESY behind him. And as you probably know, it's hard to trade as an Opera onto a rifler, so m0NESY just gets kind of frozen here. Then Nico was deep in middle. He decided to rotate over. Really great decision, because otherwise m0NESY's kind of screwed and it's going to be a very awkward situation. And then Brokey into the 1v2, narrowly misses what would have been a 3v5, just like a straight up 3v5 victory for FaZe. Look, I wanted this video to be kind of short, where I just went through kind of the interesting rounds, but every freaking round is, look at this one. Look at this. Tell me this isn't kind of cool, okay? Malbs is going to get caught up in spawn here for a few seconds because he's like dealing with the buy. I'm not sure what's going on with the buy, but he's looking around for a bit. He looks at m0NESY. Should I drop you some nades? I don't know. And so he's about 2 to 3 seconds late, right to A, which doesn't seem like much at all. It's no big deal. No big deal at all. Except the angle Malbs is supposed to be holding is over here. And that's exactly the angle that m0NESY dies from. Okay, maybe he has to delay for that flash anyways, but it looks like if he was just there a second earlier, he would have been in a really good spot. Instead, he gets 2, which is great, but that's, they lost the first kill and he eventually gets traded, and that puts them into, what ends up being a 1v2. And there's the spot on the Hunter, and that Robs, only at 27 health. That's like 1 bullet, right? But he hits the shot, and that's the round. Looking at this round, you can definitely see how much FaZe loses when Rops isn't playing at his best, right? Because Rops, people were talking about him maybe being the best player in CS2 for the first few months of the game. And now we're seeing Rops, he's kind of struggling. And in this game, though, I mean, he's doing quite well, right? Now, Frozen dies early on. He was kind of on his own. He had good utility to support him, but he's either going to win a duel or he's not. It's not going to go his way necessarily all the time. At the same time, they go for an A hit, which I thought was kind of interesting because G2 are a team that actually are fairly heavy on A, and FaZe liked to attack A quite a bit in this game. But Kerrigan finds that kill, and while this was happening, Snax was in Cheetah to begin with. A lot of the time, you would have this guy kind of wait, delay, and then he would go donut a bit later. I used to see that all the time. But teams are really favoring this like late B lurk, like straight through B. So Snax is going to make his way back around and actually search out that. But in this case, Rops isn't going for the B lurk, he's going for the mid lurk. And because Snax went back around, which puts him in a pretty good spot, especially because they had a player die and, temple control was lost really early on. You might actually want this type of thing. In this case, that means that Rops can go for this very delayed lurk. And the key is like, this can go really wrong and this can look really bad if G2 are a bit faster and if Kerrigan or Brokey die. Because then they clear out the site so fast that they go, okay, someone has to be flanking here. But because of the delay on the hit, because of how long it took Snax to actually get there, they delay the retake, and that means they have not yet realized that there's only 2 players holding the site, and Rops with the flank, I mean, he's only really required to get 1 there, right? But the spray down to get the final 2, and then the smoke gets naded out, and FaZe win the round. And the final round of the game is, I don't think, the most interesting, so I'll skip that one over. There was a lot of very small openings that were consistently caught and punished by both sides in this game. Anyways, thanks for watching.